All right. So, welcome, Sally, to the session. Nice to see you again. So we've had a little check-in and share. Maybe just to summarize that. I mean, do you want to you don't mind sharing that experience on the workshop?
No, I don't mind.
Quite useful.
I hadn't done a Teach EAM Sway workshop for a long time, and I was a little bit wondering if I could be in flow, and also realizing that the anxiety about not being in flow would make me not be in flow. But yeah, I just kind of handed it over and trusted, and it did go in flow. So,
Yeah. So the principle there is letting go and trusting yourself to get in the right state. If you're in the right state, it'll come through you. So it becomes about getting yourself into the right state, and then it happens through you. So the effort is really just to let go of the ego, often at the start. I found, like, if I did public speaking, there'd always be a bit of like nervousness, especially when I started. And then it's like, okay, once you're over that and you can just let go and you let it come, then you're fine. There's always the first, just that first bit of like, because if you got stuck there, then it was hard to then enter the flow. So it's saying, okay, can I just get myself in the right state? And it's always the empty state. That's the bizarre thing. It's not when you rehearse it and go, oh, I've got it all planned. It's like, I'm empty. I'm just like, right. I've done all the preparation. It's all in there, and I empty myself, and I just open myself to it happening. I remember when I used to write exams, university. I used to do this. Would like, okay, go for 20 minutes before the exam and empty yourself. Just I lie down and do a little kind of body scan process, and all my friends were like, what are you doing? Because they'd all just like sit chatting, and I was like, no, I want to just be clear and empty. And so even though it's highly intellectual, you're using your brain, I went in completely clear and empty, and then it comes. And you see people like desperately, cramming last minute smoke, and you're going, it's totally the wrong energy. You're going in and you're all tense and stressed, and of course, it can't flow through you there. And as a result, I always wrote pretty good exams because it's a performance. You've got to like hit it in that 3 hours, and just be really, in your flow. So it makes a huge difference to any performance. That's one example. I also learned to do it in squash. So, okay, when I could let go and just completely flow with it and not be thinking about what I was going to do and how I was going to play, that's when I played the best. It took me quite a long time to learn that. But I had this, did I ever share my zone experience with squash with you? I'm not sure I did.
no.
Okay. So if anyone's on the recording, you've heard this before, forgive me, but it was a profound, mystical experience on the squash court. So I'd had this experience to turn professional, and I'd been putting a lot of pressure on myself. It was like, right, now I'm pro, I should be really good, and I should be beating guys who are not professional, all these expectations we load onto ourselves. When in fact, it takes years. In 6 months, you're just starting, you're building the foundations of a career. But I loaded myself with all these expectations of performance, and as a result, I wasn't playing very well. So I'm being very like constricted, kind of uncreative squash, and that wasn't how I played. I usually played quite creatively, and so then it kind of all came to a head about 6 months into my professional career. I'd lost to a chap at my club in the club championships, a month or two early. He was in his late 30s, and I was early 20s. So I was in like my mind, I should be killing him, but he was still a good player. And I was now playing him in a derby match. So there were two sides from the club in the same league, in the first league in the city I lived in South Africa. So it was like a derby match. Everyone was going to be there at the club. It's like big. So there's pressure, and I'm going, my ego is freaking out because it's like performance anxiety, and are you going to win? And like if you lose in front of everyone else, and you've turned professional, they're going to go, oh, well, it's not really working out for him. And I had to kind of justify it to my parents because I decided to give up my university studies, and so all of this stuff's going on in my mind. Obviously, that blocks your flow. But somehow, I just managed to. I remember I went for a walk. My sister, it was an evening match, and I'd been like kind of stressing and working myself up into an anxiety all day. And so she said, well, my sister said to me, look, I'm going for a walk. Why don't you come to Darwin? So and we just kind of had a chat and said, well, why don't you just try and relax and enjoy it? It's like, easier said than done. But it did remind me of like the times when I started playing the game with her. It was just like go and mess around and have fun. And I used to really enjoy it. So it kind of reconnected me with why I started playing the game in the first place. And somehow I managed to just stay in an empty state. I remember like the ego trying to come in and saying, no, you need to have a strategy here. You need to have a game plan. You need to plan this. And, and it was like something in me just said, no, don't even think about this. And I went on the court in this completely empty state. And it was quite amazing what happened. It just happened. I just played without any premeditation. There was no like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I just, in the moment, I was totally in the moment. In the moment, I just did what unfolded in the moment. And it was wonderful. I played amazing. It's like so creative. And the guy was like, geez, I don't know what's hit me. Because like suddenly, he'd beaten me fairly comfortably before. And suddenly I'm just like pulling shots out of nowhere. And like I think I made one or two mistakes the whole match. I think he ended up getting about 4 points. And that wasn't really the point. Like it wasn't really about the points and the score. It was just like it was really, as you described it, I was like watching myself doing it, but I was doing it at the same time. It was a very enjoyable process, but there was a sense of being this watcher, observing this all happening and going, wow, this is pretty amazing. That was a good drop shot, whatever. And I didn't fully understand it. I'd read a little bit about flow, but that really got me interested after that. Because afterwards I felt like totally energized, elated. I went back, and, you seem really inspired. And so it was a complete turnaround in my career quite early. And I was very grateful for it because it showed me this is actually how you can be. If you can really let go, then you don't have to play this, constricted, uncreative squash. It can just happen. And for months afterwards, it lasted. And probably for the rest of my career, I never went back into that same, really constricted, uncreative mode. It was like, okay, I know how to do this now. It opened me up spiritually. I think it was profound. It was a mystical experience. I really, felt some kind of presence or awareness just doing it through me. There was no sense of needing to control it. So the ego dropped away, which is kind of the whole point. The flow experience takes you out of the ego into an intelligence far greater than that, and it's just happening through you. You're not doing it really. It's just happening through you. Eckhart Tolle has a great. I'll bring it up actually. Let's just see, because I've got this on my PowerPoint somewhere. Okay, so where are we? Let's just see. Talks about flow. When we act freely, now I just need to search on it. Maybe I'll just find it online. It's a beautiful quote, Eckhart Tolle, Mastery of Life. Quote. It's not a great one. Let me see if I can If I can find it.
Got me into EAM, the flow state. I found that with EAM, you could just say a statement that you release anything and everything that prevents my flow in all forms, levels, or points in time. I'd say that every morning 3 times, and I was just on this incredible place, and it just felt amazing. And I thought, wow, this EAM stuff is good. I'm going to have to learn it.
Yeah. And so it's just a tool to get you into that state. It's not the tool itself. It's the actual state that it gets you into. So you can see see the screen?
Yeah.
So have a read of the quote.
Artistic creation, sports, dance, teaching, counseling, mastery in any field of endeavor implies that the thinking mind is either no longer involved at all, or at least is taking second place. A power and intelligence greater than you, and yet one with you in essence, takes over. There is no decision-making process anymore. Spontaneous right action happens, and you, inverted commas, are not doing it. Mastery of life is the opposite of control. You become aligned to the greater consciousness. It acts, speaks, and does the work.
Yeah. It's a brilliant quote. That was exactly what I experienced. And it seems that many other people who've experienced this flow state describe it in similar ways. It's happening to you, through you, without conscious effort, without trying to control it. And it feels effortless. I wasn't tired at all. I could have gone on all night. So it unlocks a power and intelligence and an energy, far greater than your ego can comprehend. And the only requirement is that you let go of needing to control the outcome. If you're attached to the outcome, then you cannot access the state, because you go out of the now, you go into future orientation. It blocks this flow, and then you end up kind of grinding your way to a future result, which is how a lot of people live their lives, and they're never able to access this flow because their ego is blocking it. The ego does not want you to achieve this, doesn't want you to experience this, because in this experience is pure formless awareness coming through you, and you become aware of it. And you go, wow, that's pretty amazing. And even though it's pure formless awareness, it can do this stuff. You go, well, it can do stuff on the level of form, even though it's this formless awareness. It's paradoxical, seemingly. But it can help you to act and to speak and to write and to do anything you need to do on the level of form really, really well. Far better than you can in the ego. So the ego, any claim the ego has to allegiance, it's usually like, well, I can help you manage your life. Forget all that woo-woo stuff. That's kind of spiritual, maybe when you get older, or when but right now you got to manage your life, and and that's the claim it often has on people's allegiance. But that's just not true, because any activity, you can go into flow and you can allow the spirit to come through, and you're going to perform at a much higher level in doing that than you possibly can in the ego. So then why do you need the ego? And the answer is you don't. It's just your ego that's telling you you need it. And if you can really let go, and it was a struggle. That was like ego was fighting for control for like 3-4 hours. It was like trying to come into my mind and fill my mind with clutter. And I had to really go, no. Something in me was just like, no, don't think. And it became like a test. Okay, I'm not going to think. And then ego would come in and would try and get me to start thinking about the outcome. And I'm going to blank my mind. I'm just going to stay completely present and empty. And I managed to do that. And, the outcome was miraculous. The outcome was this extraordinary flow state, which really showed me this is what's possible if you let go. And that was a major, as I said, a spiritual experience, which I think put me on this path. So it's like, wow, that's possible in squash court. What else is possible? And it started a inquiry into, well, what is this actually? What is this flow state, and where does it come from? And that's taken me down the whole rabbit hole of spirituality. So eventually, you get to A Course in Miracles, and you start going, okay, well, it's actually the source that it's coming from, and you're tapping into it in the flow state, which is why it feels so good and why it works so well. And so flow is this presence in action in your life that gives you, extraordinary powers. Seemingly, it's not really you doing it. That's the irony. It's not you. You are not doing it. It's happening through you. So you are the done through. You're done through rather than the doer, which is completely counterintuitive to the ego. It doesn't understand that. It's going, well, who's doing it then? There's something doing it, but it's not a thing. It's just the pure formless awareness that you really are. It's doing it. You can't really name it and go, well, there it is. And you can't box it and label it and go, okay, there it is. And for next performance, there we go. I can take the magic pill and I'll get it. It's because it's a state of mind, which can seemingly be elusive, to get yourself in that state. Well, I never fully went into the same extent into that flow state like that again. It was like a once in a lifetime experience on the squash court. But there was always an element of it. There was degrees of it from that one experience. So this is why like a mystical experience can be absolutely life-changing, because it changes the pattern. It interrupted that egoic pattern. I never went back to that pattern again fully. There was always an element of flow in whenever I was playing. So yeah, that was my experience, and so it can happen anyway. In any field of endeavor. Sport is often a one where you can really notice it, because you notice the impact on your performance. But anything like speaking, writing, just playing with your children. You can have these flow experiences at any point. The idea is to make them a regular part of your life, so that actually you live in the flow more than out of the flow.
What happens for me is I do videos for my courses that I run, and I listen to one back, it goes, oh, doesn't sound like me. I didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting. So really, it's like somebody else talking completely.
You go, where's it coming from? It's not the limited. It's a greater self that is tapped into all intelligence. It's the whole awareness we're talking about that knows everything, that can bring in anything it needs. It's like, if you remember in the Matrix, they jacked in. They can download whatever they want. So okay, I need a program. Download it. It's that idea. You can download it. Even languages. I mean, Paramahansa Yogananda is a Indian yogi who went to the West, was instructed to take yoga there. And so when he arrived, they'd organized a talk for him. But he didn't speak any English. He only spoke Hindi. So he's arriving there, he's going, there's all these people, they don't speak Hindi. There was no translator. I don't speak English. So he asked for help. He went, okay, show me. And he delivered a talk, flawless English, for 45 minutes. Everyone's applauding and he has no idea what he's saying. It's just happening through him. Okay, it's obviously, so he's like downloading it. Something is coming in and speaking those words through him. In it, and he's just giving himself over and allowing it to happen through him. So, I suppose you could call it channeling, but it's like that, there's an intelligence for every situation. It's there for you if you allow it. That's really the point of flow. And we just have to get out of the way. That's the effort. That's the mantra. You've got to get out the way. Get your ego out the way and allow it to happen through you. Now that seems to be so simple, just step out the way and allow it, but it's not. That's the mind training. Because there's an entity in there that wants to control and interfere. No, I know better. Actually, do it this way, and it starts to think, and it starts to block that flow of divine intelligence, and then you feel the constriction and the contraction and the outcome orientation, and it's a slippery slope. Once you start down that track, one thought can take you in there. So this is why we do the mind training, to be really really vigilant of those kinds of thoughts. Okay, so it's a nice little intro on flow, which is kind of related to, it's all connected, it's all related to today's quote and lesson. So if you can read that, is that big enough? I can expand it a bit.
A bit bigger would be good.
It's quite a lot, and this is the parable of the prodigal son,
which is very symbolic, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his servants, "Quick, bring the best robe, put it on him, put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." Yeah.
So the story is, that's half the parable. The story is the son wanted his inheritance early. So he went to the father a few years earlier and said, "I want my inheritance." So the father said, "Okay, well, there it is now." And he went off and he squandered it. And, he did all kinds of loose living, and he ended up having no money. And he was working on a farm and ended up sleeping with the pigs and eating what the pigs were eating. And then he came to his senses and said, "What am I doing? I have a father who has a perfectly good house." And so he returns feeling really sinful and guilty, going, "Yeah, I've messed up." And so, from the ego's point of view, he's worthy of condemnation. He deserves to be condemned, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son, which is how we feel towards our spiritual father, source. I've messed up, I've separated, I've done all these bad things, I've sinned, and therefore I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. And so it's a great parable that illustrates that. But the father, being unconditional love, says, "No. It's all is forgiven. There's no judgment. I'm just very pleased to have you back. So let's celebrate, because you were dead spiritually. Now you're alive again. You've awakened." And so a great parable to give us the idea of unconditional love. What is the source? It illustrates that unconditional love. Which is why it's probably one of the best known parables, because it's a story about the human condition that resonates with every person. We all feel like we've messed up in life. We've all made mistakes. We felt sinful and guilty and unworthy at times, and sometimes for some people their entire lives. This is the undercurrent, conscious or subconscious. This is the undercurrent of the ego. And really what we're all looking for is unconditional love, to save us from this really miserable state of mind. We can't be happy if we feel sinful, guilty, and unworthy. So it's a great parable. It just brings all this into awareness. You want to read the rest? This love doesn't come from a human source.
This love doesn't come from a human source. The father in the story is really a symbol for our heavenly father, or in AOLG language, our source. The parable teaches us the simple truth that this source never abandoned or rejected you. Rather, you decided to abandon it, go your own way, and squander the abundance of love, peace, and joy it gave you.
Yeah, so that's an important point. It didn't abandon you. We project our decision to abandon it onto the source and say it abandoned us and it rejected us. That's famously symbolized in the story of Adam and Eve, where the God comes into the garden and they've done something wrong. They've eaten of the tree that he forbids them to eat from. Which is like, well, why would you do that? Because of course then they're gonna want to eat from it. Kind of set them up for failure. And then now you've sinned. Now I'm going to reject you, and you cast out of the garden. So that's symbolically what we think has happened, that God has abandoned us. But in fact, we've abandoned God. We've abandoned this awareness and squandered the abundance of love, peace, and joy that it gives us. But fortunately, as the parable clearly teaches, it's just a mistake. We've all just made a mistake. And this source, awareness, true awareness, pure formless awareness of perfect love, has no desire to punish us for our mistake.
And that happens in human illusionary life as well, doesn't it? Where we might think our mother doesn't love us or our grandmother doesn't love us. And I had that experience yesterday where I realized I did some work on my ancestors, and don't know if I'm quite in the space to explain it, but I realized that I was rejecting my mother's. I didn't feel loved by my mum, but I was rejecting her love. And I felt that she wasn't being loving because her mother didn't love her. But when I did some work on it, I found that my grandmother was very loving to my mother, but she didn't want to accept it from her mum. And then I wasn't accepting it from my mum. So kind of the same thing as source, isn't it? It's like the love is always there. It's just us denying it, not allowing it, feel like we've done something wrong, so we don't deserve it, don't allow ourselves to feel it. So yeah, it's very similar to my experience yesterday.
Yeah, and that plays out then in human relationships. If you deny the love of your source, then how can you experience the love of other people? Because it's coming from the same source. So you block it, and then you go, well, no one loves me, and then I feel abandoned and rejected. But actually, I'm deciding not to accept that love. So the key thing is to become aware again of this love that it offers you, and to accept it. To say, I'm not gonna deny this love. I'm not going to turn away from it. I'm going to accept it in whatever form it comes. So it's an inner experience. I can love myself. I feel that connection. I feel that awareness, but I can then experience it from others too. It's coming from one source. All love comes from the same source. And yet, how often do we deny love? We won't accept it. The very thing that we want, we deny it and we reject it. And then the ego, being twisted and deceitful, says, oh no, it's God that's done it to you. You're rejected and abandoned by God because you're an unworthy sinner, a guilty sinner, which is all just a story it's made up to actually cover over what you really do. You're denying that awareness to maintain your separate identity, and then projecting it onto God or anyone else and saying, God's abandoned me, other people have abandoned me, no one loves me. But actually you've denied it first. So that's the mask that it uses to cover over its denial of love, which keeps its separate identity going. Okay, so any other thoughts on that?
No, it's just interesting comparing that human experience to source. Yeah.
Well, it all comes, all love comes from the same source. So if someone's really genuinely loving and not, fake love, manipulative love, controlling love, which is special love, then it's coming from source. So just they become another channel for that source's love. So if you're blocking source's love in your own mind, then you'll block that love too. And then you live your whole life going, I'm unlovable and I'm not worthy of love, but it's actually your own decision to be that. And the only purpose of that is to maintain your separate identity, so that you believe you're not love and you have the special identity going on, which is the ego. All of which is insane when you look at it. Well, why would I do that? Well, why would you indeed? You can have perfect divine love that is totally unconditional, that gives you everything you want, and yet you reject it. That's got to be an insane decision.
Yeah, it's a big subject.
Well, it's absolutely fundamental to relationships. this topic. So it's a great the parable. I mean, genius of Yeshua was that he taught in parables. So he taught in a way that people could understand through the story, rather than just teaching principles. If he taught about an unconditionally loving God directly, people might have rejected it because they had such a narrow concept of what God was based on the Judaic religion. So he taught it in parables. And in the story, you see the nature of the unconditional love in the Father. So yeah, really, guess he was a master teacher, still is. Okay, so then just read the final paragraph there, but you must choose to return home.
But you must choose to return home and be willing to embrace your source for it to be able to embrace you with its love and give you the support, comfort, guidance, and peace you yearn for and will never find by seeking outside of yourself in the world, as the parable clearly teaches us. Yeah,
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's something shifting in me. Having had this experience with my grandmother and my mother yesterday, something's definitely shifting. Like my experience of love is shifting. I don't know quite where I was, but it wasn't really, love wasn't really connecting intimately inside of me. I was like going through the actions. I could think I loved somebody. I could feel I loved, I would say, most people unconditionally. But there was something in me that isn't quite connected right at the moment. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something's in the process of being learned.
Well, it's a subtle awareness. This what we're talking about is your ultimate awareness, which we've disconnected from. So the ego, has a great investment in keeping you disconnected from this. And it's difficult to put your finger on why, but just you don't feel fully aware and fully connected. And so we do the mind training work to systematically and progressively see the blocks, release them, and get more connected. And then that improves our relationships. And then our relationships become holy relationships. And that can happen even in the past. So that's an interesting thing. Your mother and your grandmother are both dead, I presume.
Yeah.
But you can change the relationship with them into a holy relationship in the present moment by perceiving it differently, thinking about it differently. And that then heals that relationship and it heals the past.
I think that's what was happening yesterday. There was a lot of change going on, having done that work with them. And I felt like I was closer to them, even though, like they're not here or anything, but definitely my grandmother, I felt like she was really, really here and that I could understand her and had compassion for her. And yeah, I guess I'm just still assimilating that. Yeah.
And then this lesson comes along, very interesting. Yeah. How it works. Okay. So if you read the next paragraph.
The parable of the prodigal son is really the hero's journey of separation from the familiar world, initiation through facing the overcoming challenges, and return to the awareness of the true self as love, shown in the following diagram.
So there you go. There's the hero's journey again. Separation, the son leaves, goes wandering, leaves the known world, goes into the unknown world, thinks that it's going to be better, goes through all kinds of challenges and temptations, comes to senses, a lot of pain and suffering, but then returns to his father in a now much more humble state of mind, going, okay, I didn't really know what I was doing, and the father completes the journey for him by saying, well, I love you unconditionally. And so he's returned at one-ment. There's an at-one-ment at the end of that story between the father and the son, which is symbolic of the merging of our own awareness with that of our sources. So there's the hero's journey again in that story.
Yeah, the more I see that, the more I can see where people are at on the journey. So when they're in the death, rebirth, void bit, it's like I just know that they've got a good bit coming along in a minute. Transformation is ahead. Somebody was saying today how lost they felt, absolutely lost. And, I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I feel it. I really know it now,
Yeah, and you say good to them, and they're like, really? But when you know the process, and you're like, yeah, okay, well, if this is the process of the spiritual journey, then that's where I am. If I'm here, that's a good place to be, because I'm about to break through into another level. So it's a very useful model to keep in mind, especially in dark times. Go, okay, well, this is it's a process, and I'm just going through what everyone has to go through, process. And I'm sure it was difficult for them too. There's no easy ride, unfortunately, to undoing the ego.
But when you're in that
but they got through it.
When you're in the abyss, you feel like that it's a dead end. Like it's just darkness. You can't see anything beyond it, can you? So although it's irritating when someone says, "Oh, you're in a really good place," it does give them a little hope that somebody else has been there already, and there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, which is exactly why we need the mentors and the helpers and the guides on the journey, because otherwise we'd probably lose faith. And they're there to help you and say, okay, keep going. Actually, you're not far off a shift and a transformation, and this is what you really want. So persevere. So yeah, so it leads us to a little mind training exercise, which I will do as part of our meditation. I think let's do that. We'll save that one up. So let's have a look at the lesson, and we've got some reading to do as well on what is salvation. So what is salvation? Just the next insert.
Shall I do the alternative?
Yeah, I think read the original one, just so people can hear what the terms are. Salvation is awakening, and so on, and then read the alternative.
Okay. Salvation is a promise made by God that you will find your way home to Him at last. It cannot but be kept. It guarantees that time will have an end, and all the thoughts that have been born in time will end as well. God's word is given every mind which thinks that it has separate thoughts, and will replace these thoughts of conflict with the thought of peace. Alternatively, awakening is a promise made by pure formless awareness of perfect love, that you would find your way to it at last. It can only be kept. It guarantees that time will have an end, and all the thoughts that have been born in time will end as well. Perfect love's message is given to every mind which thinks it has separate thoughts, and will replace these thoughts of conflict with the awareness of peace. That was interesting, because as soon as I started reading the alternative, the energy went very smooth and flowing. It's just such a different, maybe it started with the word awakening, I don't know, but very different.
You notice it's like an energy.
Or maybe I just relaxed into it. I don't know, maybe I've read it before and I thought it would be easier second time. But no, it felt very much softer. Maybe it's just the energy of having those words there other than the other words.
Yeah, well, it does seem like the words make a subtle difference to the message, how you receive the message. So that's why we use them. Different words, point you to a different experience, which hopefully connects you more. And this is all about experience. That's what Yeshua's trying to do, saying this words of little use now if you recall, I mean, the same. Just to go back here quickly. What does he say here? Words will mean little now. We use them only as guides on which we do not now depend. Now we seek direct experience of truth alone. So they're merely introductions. It's a pointer, it's a signpost into an experience. That's why they're quite short. So whatever's going to work, whatever words are going to work best to point you into that experience, direct experience of truth alone, then use those. And so if the alternative works best for you, then read that. Okay, so any thoughts on that first paragraph?
Just very comforting that awakening will happen and that we can replace all the ego thoughts with perfect love because it's always there. Yeah, it just feels very soft, gentle, loving, relief.
I've changed awakening, and the other one is thought, the thoughts of peace to the awareness of peace. Yeah, I think that softens it. Just an awareness of this underlying peace that permeates through your awareness, through your experience. You can kind of think of peace, conception, okay, peace, concept, but I'm not experiencing it, I'm not feeling it. Whereas an awareness of peace, and I'm actually experiencing what the word is pointing to, the state. Awareness is a state rather than a thought. So it's subtle, but it definitely makes a difference, which is why we do the translation and read it.
And for me, the important bit is to know it's always there. We just cover it up with the thoughts, that we don't have to find it, it just is there.
Yeah, always there. It's your foundation.
We haven't lost it.
You just have to let go of what's obscuring it. Whatever's covering it over, remove that, and then the awareness of peace will be there.
Okay, shall I read number 2?
Yeah, number 2.
The thought of peace was given to God's Son the instant that his mind had thought of war. There was no need for such a thought before, for peace was given without opposite and merely was. But when the mind is split, there is a need of healing. So the thought that was the power, the thought that has the power to heal the split became a part of every fragment of the mind that still was one, but failed to recognize its oneness. Now it did not know itself and thought its own identity was lost. Yeah, it's nice to know in that instant.
Yeah.
The answer.
And there's the alternative.
The thought of peace was given to perfect love's extension the moment that its mind had thought of war. There was no need for such a thought before, for peace was given without opposite and merely was. But when the mind is seemingly split, there is a need for healing. So the thought that has the power to heal the split became a part of every fragment of the mind that still was one, but failed to recognize its oneness. Now it did not know itself and thought its own identity was lost. Yeah, it's split.
Might need to be a capital, I think. So the mind is still one, he's referring to it, to not know itself.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting image, the split, and then it doesn't know itself because you split off into ego rather than into the oneness. But then as you split off into the oneness, you don't know ego, so it works the other way, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, you have to separate from separation. Yeah. You have to deny the idea of separation in order to return to oneness. the mutually exclusive thought systems and states of mind. So people who say, well, the spirit or God or oneness is all inclusive and it includes then the ego, are mistaken, because it cannot. There's a contradiction there. Then God is split. Then there's a split mind. Whole awareness is lost, and now you have duality and conflict are inevitable. And God must be insane because God's contradicting himself. God can be a God of love and hate, peace and conflict. So this is saying, no, you must choose. Unfortunately, this thought of peace, the reason I kept thought here was you've disconnected from the awareness, but there's still a thought, just a memory of a state we call peace. And so the word peace can connect you with that awareness again. So it's still a thought, but if you follow that thought and you allow it to develop, it can develop into the awareness of peace.
So in oneness, no healing required.
No need for any healing because you already are one.
So how does that work when somebody's a healer? Because I always puzzled over this, that if the person calls themselves a healer and they see the other person as needing healing, to me, that's just contradictory. It's like you need to see the other person healed, don't you? Not believe they're not healed. But then how can you be a healer? How can you call it? Kind of like just never quite sat in my mind quite right.
Well, it's paradoxical, isn't it? It's like, well, actually they're already healed. So the art of it, through this process of letting go of forgiveness, is you acknowledge it temporarily. You say, okay, so on the level of form, this person seems to need healing, but I correct my own mind. I don't believe that that's true or real, and so I know that actually they're already healed, and they're already whole. And so you're working in both domains. You start in the one, and then you shift into the other in your mind, and you take the other person with you. But therein you have the paradox of forgiveness, and why forgiveness is misunderstood, and very few people know how to do it, because it's dealing with two different realities, two seemingly opposite realities, and bringing your mind from the one rooted in separation to the other. Okay, separation isn't true, it never happened. And it's the process of moving from the one state of mind to the other that is the process then of forgiveness or letting go. And it's paradoxical by nature because you've got the two opposite states now, and you're moving between these two opposites. But that's what has to happen, because we've split our minds, and now you've created an apparent opposite to love. And that's why we give them mind training. It's an art.
Yeah.
Most people letting go.
Most people don't get oneness at all, do they? They see themselves going from one state to another, going from sick to well, but they still, oneness. I talk about it, but people, I can see that they don't understand. But anyway.
If you truly understand it experientially, then you're enlightened. Your ego's gone. So because it's a feeling, it's a state of mind. So conceptually, you can say oneness, and then someone says, "Well, okay, maybe conceptually I can understand there's oneness and there's separation, but can I experience total oneness?" That's a profound mystical experience if you do, a revelatory experience, which then makes oneness real to you. I've experienced it. I know what it feels like. And so now there's no longer a doubt. It's no longer just conceptual. It's experiential. And that's knowledge because I've experienced it.
Yeah. So that's where the mystical experience comes in. When you've had that experience, then there's no doubt, you know.
You know through your own experience. And so the
Yeah.
concept of oneness, now you can reference it to an actual experience. Go, okay, that's not just a word, a concept in my mind. That's a deep experience which has this, peace and love and joy, whatever else you experience, and you can re-experience it. So the idea of just the word peace or the word oneness, if you experienced a profound mystical experience, that can reactivate that experience, and you can go back into that experience time and time again. That's why the mystics are the great teachers of the world. They become the spiritual masters because they've actually experienced it. It's not conceptual. It's not theological. Theologians, philosophers, you can think these ideas. You can write them down. You can speak about them till the cows come home. If you're not experiencing it, then what does it actually mean to you? Very little. Just conceptual knowledge, which isn't. We use knowledge. Knowledge is experiential. Knowledge is when you actually know it to be true from your own experience, which is where he's pointing us with these lessons. That's why I've included the precursor to all the lessons, the introduction to the workbook. He's saying this is about now deeper experience of what the words are pointing to. And so the lessons are brief, just starting points for deeper experience of this identity that's seemingly been lost, but is still there. Just buried in your mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Number 3. No, that one's done. Number 3, salvation is undoing in the sense that it does nothing, failing to support the world of dreams and malice. Thus it lets illusions go, but not by supporting them, it merely lets them quietly go down to dust. And what they hid is now revealed, an altar to the holy name of God, wherein his word is written, with the gifts of your forgiveness laid before it, and the memory of God not far behind. Okay, let's see what the alternative does. Awakening is undoing in the sense it does nothing, failing to support the world of dreams and malice. So it lets illusions go. By not supporting them, it merely lets them go quietly down to dust. And what they hid is now revealed, a foundation to the whole identity of perfect love, on which its message is written, with the gifts of your letting go laid before it, and the memory of perfect love not far behind.
Just a different feel, definitely.
Yeah, so that letting go of illusions. Yeah. I've been doing a practice recently where I just don't follow the ego choices because I don't want to feed the ego. So in effect, letting go, the illusions become less and less. So I suppose that's what it means by they go quietly down to dust.
Yeah. Start realizing more and more that they really are nothing. Seem to be, great and big and strong and powerful, and they just disintegrate into dust. It's a nice image, so I've kept it down to dust. And what they hid is revealed. Just this foundation of perfect love in your mind.
Yeah, I can feel it.
Yeah. Just empty, open, we call it pure formless awareness. It feels empty, open, spacious, peaceful. There's naturally peace there, isn't there?
Mm.
The gifts of your letting go lay before, and the memory of perfect love not far behind. So any thoughts on that?
Just feeling like slipping into it, and you could just go into that state and just stay there, couldn't you?
Well, ideally, if you can use the lessons to do that as starting points for a deeper meditation, that's what he wants us to do. This stage of the course, it's less about conscious mind training. Going in the first part of the workbook, it's all about bringing things up, doing specific exercises, and then letting go of specific things. And yet, now he's saying, okay, the preparation work is done. Let's just let that go. That's the foundation, and just surrender into the oneness, deeper experience of it. Allow that experience to come. The words just are a catalyst for that experience. And you sort of feel it even in the session, like you're speaking the words, and there's a presence, isn't there? It's amazing. Mm-hmm. Just the quietness. Okay, number 4.
Let us come daily to this holy aware place and spend a while together. Here we share our final dream. It is a dream in which there is no sorrow, for it holds a hint of all the magnificence given to us by perfect love. The grass is pushing through the soil, the trees are budding now, and the birds have come to live within their branches. Earth is being born again in new perspective. Night is gone, and we have come together in the light of true awareness.
Any thoughts and feelings arising there?
When he does these comments that feel like seasonal to me, I always wonder why he's like saying that time of year. Birds have come to live within their branches. What does that mean? Just nature?
Yeah, he's using nature as an analogy to try and bring us into the experience of, okay, there's new life. Spring, the night is gone. There's trees are budding. Spring, new life. And so we've all had that experience. We've lived through these seasons, and it brings an experience into our minds when we think of the images. Although none of it's true, he's using the imagery to bring us into an experience, which is pretty a good use of words. He does it quite a lot, and throughout the course, this sort of nature images, because it's what we can connect with. So, okay, well, if I use that imagery, although it's not ultimately true, it's going to bring you into an experience, maybe more so than just words that don't evoke an experience. So then he uses the imagery quite well to bring more of the experience into your mind.
Yeah, I think what goes on in my head is like, oh, did they write this in spring? Was she channeling it in spring? Which is neither here nor there, is it?
Possibly. It was 7 years, so possibly. But he would that image. The beauty of it is that it's in our mind. So whether it's spring or it's winter or it's autumn or summer, we've all had an experience. Early spring, tide's pushing out, everything's fresh, and there's a sense of feeling uplifted. And so he's trying to recapture that. Okay, there's life again, and you're feeling renewed and restored, and life has come after the long winter.
Mm.
Particularly in the northern hemisphere, it's quite that's definitely after 4 months of winter, so you definitely feel that energy change, don't you? Very much so. So he's trying to tap into that and get us to have the experience of that, which then points us to the experience of, well, actually this is what awakening is like. It's like a new, spirit of life being renewed in you, and you're feeling that. This new awareness, true awareness, dream. And he's talking here about the happy dream, our final dream. So it's stating very clearly, this is your final dream. So that's the end of the illusion. No more illusions. No more lifetimes after this. We share our final dream here. And that doesn't make your ego get a bit worried. And nothing will. It's like, oh, dear, right. And he's bringing the dream to a close. In a very, nice way. It's not harsh, or there's no pain, there's no suffering, there's no sorrow. It's just a happy dream that's going to unfold for the rest of your life here, while you correct your perception completely and restore your mind to oneness completely.
I feel like my ego has had fair warning that it's definitely on the way out. It's, a foregone conclusion. This is what I've decided. It's not, I've decided, it's going to happen, isn't it? So I don't think there's any shock to my ego.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it. It's not like I don't see my ego as scared anymore. It's moments of panic, admittedly, but I think generally it feels a lot more of a calmer transition.
Which means there's less ego, because the ego itself is terrified. So it means the ego is just being undone and quietly goes down to dust, as he says. It's just like that entity which seemed to be so strong and powerful just becomes nothing. It's like a dust storm monster. There's a movie called, what was it called, Mummy or something? It was like all these dust storm monsters, this terrible, and then it's just dust, and then it just subsides. The wind subsides, and it's like nothing. It's gone. So the ego is a bit like that, seemingly so big and powerful and raging, but actually there's no substance to it. When that's all gone, then what's left is just, after the storm, just quiet, peaceful, calm, serene state of mind, which we can always live in. That's what he's saying. You can live in this awakened state all the time. Okay, last one.
The original as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a shift that happens when you read both, if we've got time, which we do today. So,
from here we give salvation to the world, for it is here salvation was received. The song of our rejoicing is the call to all the world that freedom is returned, that time is almost over, and God's Son has but an instant more to wait until his Father is remembered. Dreams are gone, dreams are done, eternity has shined away the world, and only heaven now exists at all. Alternatively, we awaken the world with this awareness, for it is this awareness. Something there.
I think that's right. Repeating. No, we need to fix that. For it is this awareness. Sorry, that was double. This awareness.
For it is this awareness that has awoken us. The song of our rejoicing is the call to all the world that freedom is returned. Time is almost over, and perfect love's extension has only a moment more to wait until its source is remembered and dreams are done, Eternity has shined away the world, and only the state of pure formless awareness now exists at all. Dreams are over.
Dreams are over.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of rest in that.
Mm.
Because he's pointing us to the, the end of the dream.
Mm.
And only the state of pure formless awareness now exists at all. The entire dream, the physical universe, simply disappears.
It reminds me of when you go to the pictures and you get lost in the movie, and at the end of it, when the movie's finished and the lights come up, you suddenly remember who you are. It's kind of, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, sitting in the cinema. Oh yeah, I know who I am. But it's the same awakening, isn't it?
Yeah. So like, oh, I'm not actually in the movie. I'm outside of this. We've got so sucked in. I mean, because you look at the movie imagery, it's quite a nice one. It's actually a virtual reality show, because you're not just watching it from a distance. You're actually participating. You're one of the characters, and it's got these 4 dimensions, 3 dimensions of space, and then time is the other. It has to evolve sequence by sequence to make sense. So you have to have time in order for that to happen. So 4-dimensional holographic virtual reality show. That's what our lives are. And awakening is simply saying none of that's true. Whatever you're experiencing in the hologram, in the dream, is an illusion produced by your mind. Your mind's the projector and it's a perceiver. And we've forgotten how we're doing that. But you're actually projecting it and perceiving it and then believing that you're caught up in it, even though you're projecting it simultaneously. The experience of it. How we've done this, no one really knows. The brightest mind, philosophers, scientists can't really figure this out. How have we actually done this? Fortunately, Yeshua says, well, you don't have to know that, because the truth is you never did it. So don't ask the question, how have we done this, when you never did it. Just accept that you never did it. And then it's over. And you see how it just pops the bubble of all the ego's mechanism, trying to explain this world and the universe and science and all these disciplines that try and explain. It just says, well, it never happened. So it's over. And that's the only way out, really. Okay, so any thoughts on that little passage?
I was just smiling to myself. So I thought a lot of time politicians pretend it never happened as well, but it doesn't quite work in the same way, does it? They try and pop the bubble, but
Yeah. If they haven't done genuine, that's called metaphysical ghosting. So if you pretend it hasn't happened, you haven't actually resolved the guilt and the beliefs, then you're just glossing over the top of it. Also called spiritual bypassing. You actually have to really look at the beliefs and the emotions that underpin them, and then genuinely release them. And that's then genuine forgiveness. Okay, so that's I don't know if you've been reading that every day, but you recommend you read it every day before the lesson. As preparation for the lesson, which we'll have a look at now. So,
Father, today I am your son again. Alternatively, Source, today I am your extension again.
Yeah, again, it's got a very different feeling, the alternative. It's more inward, source, it's my source. Today, I am your extension again. I'm feeling that connection. I'm feeling extended. The title of today's session is, the YouTube title put as How to Be Extended. How do you be the extended? And we talked about it, beginning that flow. When you're in the flow, you are extended. You are the extension then of that presence, and it's extending through you into the world, and you experience it. You have an awareness of it. So it feels very freeing, feels very light, happy, joyful, peaceful, all of that. So it naturally brings you the happiness that you're looking for. But you don't need to seek for happiness. You just need to allow yourself to be extended, and the happiness, the peace, the love, the joy will all come. It's all part of that extended feeling, that extended state.
Yeah, the word extend doesn't quite work for me. I was just wondering what another word I could use. Just Googling what extension. Oh, I'm going to get all the wrong words come up. But for me, it's more like I am source, I am flow. That's what I've written on my card today.
Yeah, well, I mean, we discussed this before. This is a mechanism to reconnect you with that. So if you're feeling disconnected today, I'm your extension again. Okay, let me use the lesson to reconnect, which isn't necessary if you are rooted in that awareness. You wouldn't need to say I'm your extension. If you go, no, I am that awareness. I am source itself.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that's a big step to say I am love itself. I am pure formless awareness, perfect love. Well, I'm not really feeling that. So then the idea of being its extension is kind of a bridge.
Yeah. When I say I am source, I can really feel it. So I like the feeling.
So, use what works for you.
Yeah.
And these lessons are just pointers. So if the lesson doesn't point you really well, change it. I am source. Today, I am source. I am source today. I am source now. And you can, play with all of those and see what happens.
Yeah.
Take you into a deeper experience. Okay, so if you read paragraph 1, the original, and then the translated version.
Today we will anticipate the time when dreams of sin and guilt are gone, and we have reached the holy peace we never left. Merely a tiny instant that has elapsed between eternity and timelessness. So brief, the interval there was no lapse in the continuity, nor break in thoughts, which are forever unified as one. Nothing has ever happened to disturb the peace of God, the Father and the Son. This we accept as wholly true today. Alternative. Today, all right, carry on.
Yeah.
Today we will anticipate the time when dreams of sin and guilt are gone, and we have reached the wholly aware peace we never left. Merely a tiny moment has elapsed between eternity and timelessness. So brief is this interval that there was no lapse in continuity between, or nor break in thoughts, which are forever unified as one. Nothing has ever happened to disturb the peace of perfect love, the source and its extension. This we accept as wholly true today. Yeah, when I was reading it, I liked the idea of the tiny moment between eternity and timelessness. Because there's not time, but I suppose that moment exists, yeah.
Well, it doesn't really. So what he's trying to say to us is we have this tiny mad idea. It's like a little bubble of thought.
It's a thought.
And then we go into that bubble and we get lost in the bubble. But it's like a tiny little bubble in a this infinite, eternal awareness. But from within the bubble, we think that now this is our new reality. We can only see what's in the bubble of that thought. So our entire physical universe is like that bubble. It's a bubble of thought, actually really infinitesimal in the grand awareness. And yet, when you're within the bubble seems to be very big and very, very real. And it seems to go on for a long time. You've got time and space, and you've got this universe, and it seems to be enormous. But actually, it's just a tiny moment.
But when you have those mystical experiences, there does feel like there is a moment in time. It's like, when we go into the timelessness, don't know how to explain it. If I go into the timelessness, although the experience is timeless, there still feels like a moment of passing of time for me to have that experience. Oh, it's difficult to talk about, isn't it? It's like the clock doesn't move very much, but it does move a little bit.
So we still experience, these awakening experiences, these mystical experiences in time. It's still maybe some conception of time, except in revelation, when it's a pure revelatory experience. There's no, time disappears, but that state's generally not going to last very long. You're going to come back, and then there's going to be some awareness of time. I've had, one of those experiences. I suppose in meditation, you go into deep states where time isn't really a factor at all. So we can experience that timeless state here now. And what he's saying is actually, well, really, your entire life and everything that's ever happened in every life is just a tiny moment. It's a tiny mad idea, a tiny moment of insanity, and recognizing that can pull you out of it. You can go back into your true awareness anytime you want, and just recognize, well, I just got lost in that tiny moment, and that moment then seemed to go on and on and on and on. But actually, it was just one tiny mad idea. It seems to have gone on and on and on a long time because I've identified with that idea. I've made that idea real in my mind, even though it has no reality at all.
It seems to me that if I am in the now more, the day seems to last longer. It feels like there's so much more spaciousness in the day. It's funny, isn't it?
Time is perceptual, and it's relative. There's no absolute time. Time is perceptual, so it's relative. Hence, Einstein saw this theory of relativity. Everything's relative in this world. Time is not an absolute constant. It's relative and it's perceptual. What's absolute is your awareness. So there's some awareness of time passing, but that awareness is timeless because it doesn't matter what is happening in time. That awareness remains. If you really go deeply into that awareness, then that's the mystical experience of the timeless state. You go, I am that awareness, and it's timeless because that awareness doesn't change. Time always involves a change of state, doesn't it? It involves a movement. So I'm physically moving, my thoughts are changing, my emotions are changing. Time and change go hand in hand. Without one, you wouldn't have the other. So time is predicated on the illusion of change. But if your true awareness is changeless, then time must be an illusion too, because it requires change in order to seem to be real. If nothing ever changes, then there's no time, because there's nothing to measure it by.
Wow, that's profound.
See, timelessness and changelessness, it's one and the same thing. Eternal oneness, which never changes, then yes, well, of course there's no time because it's eternal, it never changes. That state is constant.
Mm.
Sometimes the scientists and so on, there's a theory, scientific theory called the steady state theory, where they were trying to find a steady state in the universe, and say, well, the universe is the same. It's not growing, it's not shrinking or growing. It's static, and that's been disproved, that theory, because in time everything's changing. But what the guy who formulated was trying to do was to find the constant, the changeless, within the domain of change. But you're never going to find it within the construct of time and space, because it was designed to be changing and designed to confirm that time is real. So you go beyond the models. There's nothing you can't model eternity. It just is. But the models point to it. If you go into any of these scientific models, it points to a 0 point, a steady state, 0 point energy, they call it. Cosmologists call it the before, time zero, before the Big Bang. And they're saying that state still exists. That's like the foundation of reality, that steady state. And then everything that seemingly happened subsequently is can now be modeled and explained. But that state is still there. So science will get you there as well, but then you have to abandon the models. You go, okay, well, there's no point with that realization. There's no point in continuing to try and explain things through the models, because the models don't explain that. All I can do is have an experience of that, which is exactly what we're doing with this mind training. And then you become a mystic and not a scientist, which is what started to happen to Einstein. You see in his writings, became much more mystical, philosophical, experiential towards the end of his life. He's saying nothing has ever happened to disturb the peace, perfect love of source and its extension. So there is no error. This is the same teaching as forgiveness. There is no error. There's nothing ever really happened. This we accept as wholly true today. Nothing has ever happened to disturb the peace of perfect love, the source and its extension, which in truth are one. From the separated perspective, in the dream, they seem to be separate, but they're not. It's one awareness. I sneezed on the truth of that.
It's quite deep, isn't it? Because I've heard you say that before, and yeah, it just feels different.
No, every time you hear the truth, you're in a different state of mind, so it can be experienced differently. You can never really tire of it, which is why it's called the perennial philosophy. So like, well, each time you hear it, you could say the same thing, and yet one day you'll have a different experience to another. Both potentially equally profound, just a different flavor of it. Which is why you can never really get tired of doing authentic spiritual practice, following an authentic spiritual path, because your experience is always going to be fresh and new. So I've been working with this course for 16 years. I'm not tired of it. It's like just kind of getting warmed up now. Wow. Look at what's, the more you get into it, the more reveals itself. You go, wow, it's like I'm not tired and stayed and I'm bored of it. It's like, wow, like look at what's unfolding from these same words.
Imagine where you'll be in 16 years' time.
Who knows? Yeah. Hopefully just be beyond needing the words, ideally. I mean, what he's saying is like, this is mind training as long as you need it, but eventually you don't need it anymore. If you're just rooted in this fundamental awareness. You don't need to train yourself anymore. It's just there. You are it. It is you. And you don't need the reminders and you don't need the pointers because you're already there. So that's where this is leading to. I mean, the course is just a tool. It's training to get you to a state of mind that's beyond the need for training. You don't need training if you already are that awareness. But in time, that's a process that's got to unfold, and there's learning that seems to happen and undoing, and that's why he says, this is the scope of this curriculum is undoing. That's what we're here to do, and what's beyond it is beyond the scope of the curriculum, but that will come through the curriculum. You will experience that state when you're ready, when you've really learned these lessons that he's teaching us. Okay, so any other thoughts on number 1?
No.
Tiny tick of time. It's a useful thing to just remember. It was a tiny instant of false thought. We got sucked into that, and then this thing expanded, and now we have time and space and a whole illusion from this one instant of madness, and we got caught up in it, and it seems to be real, and it seems to go on forever, but actually instantly you can reverse it. You can come out of that madness and you can go into this timeless state of pure awareness where you can just you can look at that whole bubble and go, I'm zoomed out, I'm now out of the bubble, and I can just see it for what it is, a little bubble of thought. It's actually sitting within a field of pure awareness, which is what I really am. And this is the mystic experience. If you really experience that, then you're in your true awareness, and really the illusion has no real power. You see it for what it is. It's just an infinitesimal little thought that you got lost in, but now you've extracted yourself from it, and you're in the awareness that it actually is everywhere, that surrounds it. There's this tiny little ridiculous thought bubble that seems to exist apart from pure formless awareness of perfect love, which you now wholly identify with. Okay, on to number 2, last paragraph.
We thank you, Father, that we cannot lose the memory of you or of your love. We recognize our safety and give thanks for all the gifts you have bestowed on us, for all the loving help we have received, for your eternal patience and the word which you have given us that we are saved. Okay. Alternatively, we thank you, Source, that we cannot lose the memory of you and your love. We recognize our safety and give thanks for all the gifts you have given us, for all the loving help we have received, for your eternal patience and the message you have given us that we are free. Yay, we're free. I was just thinking about you emptying your mind to play squash. Do you know, I'd never even thought about it from the aspect where every time a thought comes up, you go, nope, and just keep batting them away. Every time a thought comes up, you can just go, nope, I'm not going to follow that train of thought at all. And that's given me another visual that would be quite handy.
Yeah, it was actually, so the ego wanted me to go and plan it, and okay, well, what's your strategy going to be? What you're going to do? And so that would come up, and then instead of taking the bait and going, okay, all right, I'll work out my strategy and I'll do a visualization. I did all these techniques. It was like, no, something in me. It was so interesting. I don't know what, because I hadn't really done much of this work. I'd done, some kind of, I'd say what I understand now, but something in me, this was, must have been the spirit, of course, said, no, just don't go there. So discipline your mind and hold this empty space, as hard as it may be. And the ego kept trying to come in. I was like, no, I'm just going to blank my mind, and I'm not going to think. And I managed to stay in that empty, open state. And then because I was empty, now the spirit could come through and it played for me. And it was designed to show me, look at what I can do for you if you just let go and you allow it. Imagine if you did that with your whole life. Oh my goodness. And so it was a profound experience. It's put me on a spiritual path on the squash court. So there's nothing that's not spiritual. It's truly, wherever you are, you can experience this presence. It goes with you wherever you go.
It's strange though, because I've never thought about having a blank mind in that respect. I thought, like you can do mindfulness, you can listen to recordings, you can do the breath work, but they all tend to busy the mind with something, don't they? They give the mind's ego something to focus on. But to actually,
it's a technique to try and stop all the chatter. So mindfulness is like, okay, we'll focus on your breath or focus on. But in the end, the true meditation practice takes you into this awareness of awareness. Samadhi is just you're aware of awareness, and that's it. There's no need for controlling the breath, observing body sensations. You've used those as tools to get you into this awareness. But in samadhi, you just are the awareness. You completely are rooted in that awareness, and there's no other awareness.
And that's what you've been teaching in your meditations when you say we're going to have a minute or 2 minutes silence. It's easy to be in the quiet space when you do that. But if I wasn't in meditation, to be able to get myself there, that vision that I've now got of like choosing emptiness, choosing clear space and no thought. And every time a thought comes, not to wrestle with it, change it, go down with it. Just go.
No, it's just
nope.
It's so interesting. It was just a refusal to think it. I was like, okay, I'm not going down that track. The thought would come in and be a little like thought with a bit of anxiety. Oh, if you don't plan, you need to plan this. You need to, have a strategy. And I just go, no, I'm not going there. I'm not going to go, okay, yes, I'm going to listen to that and now start planning my strategy. I just stopped and I refused to do it. So it was mind control. So a lot of these techniques teach a practice to help you do that. So you breathe, or you observe the body, and that tends to control the thoughts. The thoughts sort of go away if you focus your attention on the breath. Naturally, you don't think as much. But you can do it directly. Harder, I found it really hard, and it's still, if you're in the thinking mode, to then go don't think. Well, a lot of people is really hard. That's why they need a technique. But if you can do it, so like a direct, it's like, okay, just don't go there. Don't think it. You're aware of the temptation to think it and to go down. It's like a rabbit hole, isn't it? Wants you to take the first step and then the next one, and one thought will lead to another and another, and then emotion comes in. And, if you follow that, within a minute or two, you can be down the rabbit hole, really in thinking mind and in the emotions that it stimulates. And it's like having the awareness that don't go there. Don't go there. Don't take the bait, Sally. Don't entertain the first thought and then let that kickstart a chain of further thought. That's how I did it. I just kind of blanked it, said no. And so I was able to maintain that emptiness. I could still, there were obviously people around, so I was pretty quiet, but I was able to speak to people without really engaging the thinking mind. That's the interesting thing. You can actually kind of speak on some kind of autopilot. Your mind, there's a part of your mind that knows what to say and what to do without really conscious thought being needed. So you can actually live in this way, and enlightened beings do live in this way. Okay, I don't need to consciously think. I'm just being done through all the time. And far from being a vegetable, because the ego is going to say, well, you're just going to be a vegetable. What are you going to say? You're not going to be able to do anything or speak, or, no, you're going to be totally antisocial and all these kinds of objections. But it's not true. You can actually still engage, but without really much conscious thought. It just happens. And now I'm speaking. How's this happening? I don't even know how it's happening. It's so interesting. Like the mind is quiet and aware, and yet that words are kind of coming out without any conscious thought. How does that work? I don't really know, to be honest, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to know. You just have to allow it to happen. Trust that, there is an intelligence and a presence that speaks for you and acts for you, and it all happens perfectly if you allow it, without any conscious thought being necessary. It's kind of extraordinary, really. You're like, how does that actually? I've sometimes thought about it, going like, we can't really even fathom it, can we? How are we speaking, saying these words and doing these things, and there's no conscious thought? Like, I'm not consciously thinking about what I'm thinking now, about what I'm saying, and yet it's happening. So there's some kind of intelligence that transcends thought that's doing it. And it's just to allow that to happen and to unfold in total trust. Okay, it's just happening through me, and it always can happen. That intelligence is always there, so I'm never without it. It's there whenever I need it. It can say whatever I need to be said. Whatever needs to be said, it will say it. Whatever needs to be done, it will do it. But I'm not really doing it. So then who's doing it? And so that leads you directly to awakening, doesn't it? Well, if you're in that state, that flow state, who's doing it? Well, it can't be a separate self. But there's a presence and awareness, call it whatever you want, that must be doing this, that's beyond understanding. It's beyond intellectual understanding. We can't really frame it and compute it and analyze it and fragment it and do all the things that our intellectual minds like to do. It just is. And it feels, when you're in it and it's doing you, it feels amazing. It's like, I actually feel alive. This is the rebirth experience he pointed to in the What is Salvation text. It feels really, enlivening and amazing. And you can't really, as soon as you try and explain it and dissect it and analyze it, you lose it, don't you? You can't do that. Because it's whole. It's a whole awareness. Which is ultimately why this is experiential. So your experience of that presence that this is leading you to, where you go, okay, I get it because I've experienced it. And then you don't need the teaching anymore. You're like, okay, the Holy Spirit's goal is to free you from the need for it. You don't need it anymore when you're rooted in your true awareness. You don't need the memory, because remember, it's a remembrance of pure formless awareness. You don't need the memory anymore when you are rooted in it, when you are it. This is no longer a memory, it's your whole awareness. And then you're free. Then you're enlightened, you're free, you are that awareness, and the merging of the Father and the Son has taken place. And there's no Father and Son anymore. It's one awareness. So you're correct when you say extension. It doesn't really, because it's a pointer to get you back into that awareness. But it can be a useful pointer if you feel separated from that awareness. But once you've attained that awareness and you're experiencing more and more of that, we'll just go directly into that awareness. I am love might be the best pointer. Or I am that I am. Or just I am. They're just words to point you into the state. So, use whatever works for you to bring you the experience of it, the direct experience of truth. Speaking of which, shall we do a meditation?
Yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you.
So, shall I do a 15-minute one? Then you've still got
yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
25 odd minutes to prepare for your session. Okay. So just making yourself comfortable. Just going to close the door. So making yourself comfortable, just sitting in the meditation posture, your feet shoulder width apart ideally, back straight. Cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just clenching the sphincter muscle, locking the energy in, and this energy rising up the spine into your heart center, and then rising up into the crown of your head. Just pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. So scan your mind and just observe any thoughts, any emotions, any sensations coming up, particularly anything that feels negative, limiting, contracted, constricting in any way, shape, or form. Breathe into that to create some space, some awareness, some light of awareness. Notice any obstructions to that. So any thoughts, emotions, sensations that seem to obscure that, take you away from this deep awareness. Notice how they feel physically, mentally, emotionally. And then just remind yourself, Source, my source, Father, today I am your son or extension. Again. And exhale. Just blowing it all away. Letting go of any of these blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Pull the lower stomach into the spine, expel the Rastramania out. And rest in this deep peace and stillness. Beyond these thoughts and emotions. Beyond physical sensations and sense perceptions. Lies pure formless awareness of perfect love. And you are this awareness. An extension of this awareness, which is your source. So this awareness extends into your mind. So as your mind underpins every experience, that awareness permeates every experience that you have in this world. It's the underlying awareness without which there would be no life, there would be no existence, no experience of anything. So in the recognition of this, smile, breathe in again, and just as you inhaling this presence, this awareness, allowing it to extend into you and through you. Keep drawing it through with the breath, bringing it in. So the inflow is the inhale. Bring it into your awareness. You hold the breath, hold it in your awareness briefly. Experience the deep peace, stillness, and the silence of this awareness. Now be willing to allow this awareness to extend through you as you exhale. You feel the extension happening through you, in you, and through you. So we can extend this thought, feeling, thought of peace, this true awareness outwards. It's not really outwards, because it's actually all happening in our minds, but it feels like something's moving out, extending out from us, taking us out of our little prison, our self-concept that's very little and small and limited, into our true awareness. So breathe that awareness in. You are the extension of this awareness. Ultimately, in heaven, you are this awareness. There is no other awareness. You and this awareness are one. It is your fundamental awareness. The great I am presence. I am that I am. I am what I am is the first name of God in the Bible, given to Moses. He had his mystical experience of seeing the burning bush. I am that I am. And then that awareness instructed him to extend it into the world, to go extend this to his people and free them from their mental, emotional, and physical bondage. So he allowed it to extend through him, and that extension, which translates into words and actions, is the flow. It's divine guidance and inspiration. It's being done through by the Spirit, doing the will of God, another way of saying it. So let all these insights just drop into your awareness. You are all of it. You're the extension of the perfect love right now. Extension of pure formless awareness of perfect love. That whole awareness is yours, and there's nothing that awareness cannot do, because it is the foundation of all life. So feel that empowerment. Feel the power of your source coursing through your veins, and every vein and artery, and every muscle and cell of your body. Every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is rooted in this true awareness. And just surrender to this experience for a couple of minutes of deep silence. There's nowhere else to go, there's nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax. Watch your breath flowing in and out through the nose, and sink inwards deeper and deeper with each breath into this awareness. Allow it to extend through you, show you that you are it and it is you. The next 2 minutes of deep, peaceful silence. And any thoughts come in, just be willing to let them go. The help of your breath, exhale them out to the nothingness they really are. Going, gone. Blowing them away. The breeze of your breath, like dark clouds. Refuse to think them, just stay in the pure blue sky of your true awareness, beyond all the clouds. And let the blazing light of your source of life and love itself, shine through your mind and shine away these dreams. And just rest in this blazing light. Imagine it's infusing every part of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being. And rest in this awareness of light. Another minute or so of deep silence. Gently coming back in this deep connected state. Bring some awareness into your body, into physical senses, and via that into the world, the external world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. And the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Notice any smell in your nose as you breathe that air in, taste in your mouth perhaps. Pause at the top of the inhale. And just scan your mind. Notice any thoughts, any emotions going on. Particularly anything that feels negative or limiting, attracted or constricting in any way. Just blow it away with the breeze of your breath by exhaling, saying, Source, my source, today I'm your extension again, so I let go of any blocks to this extension Right now, blow it all away. So the air flows out, chest and the stomach suck back in. There's the energy subsiding back down, crown of your head, on the front channel of your body, coming to rest in your lower stomach and your groin. All the stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. Let's rest. It's deep peace and stillness. A few moments. Count to 2. Notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling, your hands and touching. The subtle taste in your mouth, the smell in your nose. Notice that. Notice what you're hearing, but without any judgment, just allowing whatever sense perceptions to arise, and then they pass away, and they rise and they pass away, and you perceive them all very peacefully. So this is the true awareness, underlying awareness in your mind, which you try to connect with in these meditations and then maintain throughout your day. So I hope you do that. Practice today's lesson frequently, ideally every hour. Yeshua recommends using the short 3-minute breath break I sent you, or instructions in the text message or email today, to practice in under a minute. It will keep you connected to the source and being extended by it. That's what it means to be extended. So it is said and so it is done. And so on the count of 3, open your eyes. Take a minute just to look around, observing the various objects in the room around you. It's very quiet, peaceful, connected state. So notice that the awareness is always there. It doesn't matter what you're looking at. It's the same awareness. So move your eyes to another object, then another one again, and notice that the underlying awareness is exactly the same. Nothing's really changed. If you're not naming and judging and labeling all these illusory objects that come into your sense perception, then you remain rooted in this fundamental awareness. And the state is called samadhi. It actually means the sameness of perception. You maintain the same awareness no matter what you see or hear or perceive with the physical senses. So this is all training you to do that. And the more you do the lessons, practice the lessons, the more that will happen for you. So practice well. As I said, practice every hour this lesson, even if it's just for a few seconds, reminding yourself, my source today, I'm your extension again. In the situation, I'm your extension again. Do a little breathing to help you let go of anything that's blocked your awareness. Or if you've got a bit longer, do a 3-minute breath break to reconnect you, and practice today's lesson one more time in a longer practice period this evening. You can use the meditation I posted today, or I'll send you a slightly longer one, which I recorded in the evening. So listen to either of those this evening and practice every hour, and that should keep you extended, being extended and done through by this source, which is what I wish for you for the rest of the day and the evening ahead. So thank you, Sally. Thank you, everyone who's listening on the recording, and brings us to the end of the meditation. So namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Okay. See you tomorrow.